My name is Jeff Howey, and this video is made for every man, woman, and child in New Mexico. We have a serious problem in our state, and I'm here to discuss the findings of a lawsuit we just finished last year in November, Howey's versus Grisham Clark et al. And Grisham is Michelle Lujan Grisham, the governor. Basically, what we uncovered, we as a group of mentors and myself, along with the help of my wife, on the filings on the record, we uncovered that the entire government of New Mexico is being run fraudulently. All the courts, all the executive branch, and so much more. And so let's get in the presentation and I'll walk you through it, and it's going to shock you and anger you. Some will call it no way, but I proved it all on the record and you can go find it yourself. Okay. The title of this is the final orders that were filed November 12th in Doñana County at the county clerk. The case number is there, and there's actually stored under a different, and we'll talk about that. This was a common law lawsuit, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And all filings are on the record per the Constitution, and there's a link there. And if you search on my name, you're going to pull them up. They are labeled incorrectly. I'm trying to force them to correct them per federal law. So as of right now, they all say MISC for miscellaneous. So my lawsuit is a common law lawsuit. It's the 7th Amendment to the United States. I didn't know it existed. And it says, these are direct words, in suits at common law where the value in controversy exceeds $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. Essentially what it states is whatever the jury decides is truth. And judges have no influence over this, and it cannot be appealed. The process of common law is someone has a trespass against them, a theft, a harm, extortion, murder, whatever. The injured party, the man or woman, files a notice on the record through the county clerk, provides a copy of that notice to the accused party, another man or woman, has 30 days to rebut the claim, submit contrary evidence, contest the claim, the accusation, etc. If no response satisfactory to the injured man or woman, the second notice is sent. Another 30 days are allowed to respond. If no response again, the injured party invites the accused party to a common law court to bring forth the evidence on the record against the accused before a jury. So that's the process. So in the process of our lawsuit, I continued to bring the evidence forward. I did first in 2022 with a notice to the taxation department. I did the same in 2023, the second notice, notifying them that the Supreme Court was a corporation. In my case, in this lawsuit, I was able to prove that, and I'll tell you how I did that. But this DUNS number right here is Dun & Bradstreet. The Supreme Court of New Mexico and all subsidiaries are corporations. They have no authority over us, over any man or woman, living souls, sovereigns living in the state of New Mexico, which is a republic. The second one, the state of New Mexico, is also a corporation like Bank of America and Walmart, Home Depot. And there's their DUNS number there, found at Dun & Bradstreet. And they have no authority over any man or woman. Think of Michelle Grisham as the CEO of a corporation called the State of New Mexico, Inc. But there's two provisions, actually three in the Constitution that this lawsuit ended up focusing on. And the first is in Article 6, Section 20. Under the jurisdiction of the New Mexico Constitution, it states this is the exact text, styles of writs and processes. All writs and processes shall issue, and all prosecution shall be conducted in the name of the state of New Mexico. That is considered title case, first letters capitalized. It's not read in the Constitution. I'm highlighting it for its importance. It is not all caps. It is what's called title case. So the note, and this is in my filing, if any court document has the all caps version, the corporate version, the state of New Mexico, it proves as prima facie evidence of the intent and actions of each court filing to defraud the living souls, men and women, by acting as a real court when in reality they are fictional corporate courts with no jurisdiction or power over any man or woman living in the state of New Mexico. That should shock anyone who hears that. The second, Article 6, Section 22, under the jurisdiction of the New Mexico Constitution, Article 6, Section 22, the clerk of the court is the county clerk. If you go down to your local county clerk today, it's Saturday. This video was made on Saturday. You go down Monday morning and ask the clerk at the county, are you the clerk of the court? They're going to answer in the affirmative, yes, we are. But what happens in all the courts is, and if their documents aren't filed at the county clerk, they're not valid. And so basically it makes any document not filed on the county clerk fraud. It's a prima facie example of violating the Constitution of the state of New Mexico, and it's complete and utter fraud. And this happens every day in every court in New Mexico, from the Supreme Court, the appeals court, all the way down. So another thing that was proved out was that the all caps version of any name of any man or woman, son or daughter, is considered a corporate fiction, a dead entity, and does not have any life or breath, any ability of a living man or woman. The two examples there, John A. Doe and Jane B. Doe, those are all caps. If you see that on your driver's license, on a credit card statement, on your utility bill, they're all referring to the corporation under your name that you didn't know you had. Title case, the first letter capitalized in each name can be considered as a living soul. We see John Doe here shown differently, especially when penned as a signatory with a designation /S/ that means a living soul. As a reader of this document, take out your birth certificate and note the all caps version of your name, and then the document number on the top corner, and sometimes on the back. That's called your QSIP number, assigned to you, your all caps name at birth. It's actually referring to the birth of a ship. So I guess the question here is, how did I prove this? What I did was I presented this information in a document as part of the court proceedings, filed on the county clerk, and the judge in this case kept committing fraud. And I'm going to back up 2 slides. He kept violating this one here. All of his documents had the state of New Mexico in all caps, and he didn't file any of them on the clerk of the court. He filed them at the clerk at the Doñana County Court. That clerk is not the clerk of the court according to the Constitution, the law of the land. Every document he filed were not filed at the county clerk. And so they were all fraud. They were all titled incorrectly. They were all filed incorrectly. And there's more. I'll get to that. So here's an example. And this is dated January 29th. Okay, this was a different case of a friend of mine. And he and I were interacting over the phone, and we met for the first time, and he brought this document. Notice up here, State of New Mexico in all caps. That's a violation of Article 6, Section 20. Notice the clerk of the court is Bernice A. Ramos, clerk of the court. If you know who the Doñana County clerk is, that's the lady at the court. Okay? Matthew Lee Phillips is the gentleman I got this document from. It's in all caps. That is the dead entity called Matt Lee Phillips. That is not the gentleman that I met. And then we have all these different people here, all in all caps. And notice it's not filed on the record. Okay, so this document is fraudulent. And this is what the judge in my case, Judge Casey B. Fitch, did repeatedly, knowingly. And I kept pointing it out to him on the record that he committed fraud. He's no longer the judge. He even said on the first example that he filed at his court, not at the county clerk, that he doesn't have any jurisdiction over this case. And yet he kept interjecting himself. But you can see my notes on the right there. Here is the result, okay? The notice and demand, notice Casey B. Fitch, the living soul, he is a criminal. He has broken multiple constitutional statutes, multiple statutes, and even U.S. statutes and U.S. Articles. So has the Secretary of Taxation, okay? And notice, I want you to notice here, this down at the bottom, that's saying it's been filed at the county clerk. This is filed at the court, okay? Notice the state of New Mexico in title case. Notice at common law court. And so all of these things, notice my wife and my name are in lowercase, and theirs are in lowercase and uppercase. I'm acknowledging the corporate titles, but I'm also noticing the living soul, okay? So I sued the living soul and their corporate name, both. But all the documents from KCB Fitch and their attorneys for the governor had our names in all caps. This is called a caption. They have to duplicate this exactly. They didn't do it each time. Okay, so that's part of the fraud. Here's another one. This is the cabinet secretary, Stephanie Chardine Clark, filed on the record. Okay, filed at the court, but more importantly, filed at the the county clerk. Notice the title case. Notice that common law. It's all here. Okay. The judges had none of these notations. This was all wrong, titled incorrectly, filed incorrectly, etc., etc. And here is Michelle Lujan Grisham's. I believe there's at least 22 counts listed in this criminal referral, violations of the Constitution, of state law, federal law, and the federal Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. Notice the captions and everything is all the same, and it's filed at the county clerk, proper everything. Okay, so we have some results of these filings. Raul Torres, the acting attorney general of New Mexico, notice here, when I filed a IPRA request, IPRA, similar to a FOIA, Freedom of Information, they basically said, Raul Torres, they have no records regarding him. Okay, worse is that this is his oath, and you'll notice it's his name there and his signature, and then he has a state judge who is retired, and he didn't file it at the clerk. So basically this oath is fraud. Okay, Raul Torres, the supposed attorney general, is acting like the attorney general, but he's not. He's a fraud. All of his actions are fraud. Right now he's suing the U.S. government. He's actually appealing the verdict and everything regarding Brad Lunsford. So he is acting fraudulently against people in New Mexico, men and women, and against the federal government. All actions are fraud. Then we have the first term of the governor. I would like you to notice first, she's being sworn in, and a state judge who's not a judge, he's temporary, and it says governor. And the key question is, governor of what? Governor of a university, governor of what? And what's fascinating is, and she didn't record it at the county clerk. So all of her actions, this is her first term. This is COVID, okay? She wasn't the governor of New Mexico during COVID. All of her actions during COVID, all the shutdowns, everything is fraud. And she can now be sued in common law court for everything she's worth. I heard the other day she's worth $250 million. She has caused such damage to so many businesses and so forth. Here's her second term. Okay, notice she's being sworn in. Notice she's got another temporary judge, and it says governor of the state of New Mexico. Okay, but she didn't record it at the county clerk. She recorded at the Secretary of State, and that's the discrepancy we're going to see, is that, but because of this, all of her actions in the second term, this is all appointed people to every position, to every cabinet member, everything is fraud. So I made a request on February 2nd, that's last week, at the Santa Fe County Clerk for the written oaths of office for the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, Raul Torres, state attorney general, the state police chief, cabinet position for the state police, each of the Supreme Court justices, and the written oaths for all of the health department heads from 2019 to 2025. What was the response from the Santa Fe County Clerk the next day? right here, Santa Fe County Clerk has no records responsive to this request. They actually told me to go to the Secretary of State's office, which I've already done. Okay, some of these O's, they're filed there. But the problem is the Constitution says they need to be stored at the Santa Fe County Clerk. The county clerk has no records to this request. That includes the Supreme Court of New Mexico. So, and we have these judges all across the state not complying willfully with the Constitution. If they don't comply, they are warring against the Constitution, engaging in acts of violence of the supreme law of the land. The judge is engaged in acts of treason. What if all the judges in New Mexico, Supreme Court, Appeals Court, all the district courts are all violating the Constitution every day? That's what we proved in my case by putting it on the record, giving them 30 days to respond. And after the third time of this happening with the judge in my case, KCB Fitch, I took the entire case, all their filings, all the invalid O's, and I gave it to all the judges in Doñana County, 9 total, including Judge KCB Fitch. 4 times, the judges refused to counter, to contest, to do anything. They stayed silent. What does that mean? It means they assented, they agreed with what I put forward as evidence. They agreed the governor's not the governor. They agreed that all these O's are invalid. They agreed that all of these laws are not being followed in their own courts all across New Mexico. And they had 4 chances in my filings to contest, and they chose to stay silent. That silence is assent. So the challenge is, if the people, the men and women of New Mexico, don't know about the fraud being committed against each man and woman, nothing will change. So this presentation is being sent out across New Mexico, and you are being challenged to go through it. Go look at the record. I have all the files. They're available to anyone in New Mexico. If you want to find one that's very interesting, it's the one entitled Notice of Fraud and Treason, and it's also a demand on the judge to answer some question. He refused, and he refused to even acknowledge the Notice of Fraud and Treason. Okay? He never even acknowledged that document existed, let alone the other judges. That's what they were handed, and they said nothing. So, but this has been going on since 1934. The Rules Enabling Act of Congress was passed, and it was passed June 19, 1934. And what it did was Congress gave the judges across the land, including the Supreme Court, the ability to write rules for their courts to be uniform across the nation. The problem is, can Congress tell the courts what to do? No. Go look at your Constitution. The Constitution tells the courts what they can do. Constitution tells Congress what they can do. So what happened was these rules were drawn up, and they knew they were violating the Constitution. But what was going on in 1934? The Depression. People were not paying attention to Congress. They were trying to feed their families. They were trying to not lose their homes. They were trying to find jobs. They were struggling just to survive. And so what happened is that they took over the whole court system by 1938. And they put corporations over everything. And they took away the freedom that we had in the courts in common law. And they overrode it with corporations, with all these corporate names in all caps. And from then on, the Constitution was overwritten, in effect, by fraud. And it's been doing so since 1934 to 38. This is not a new thing. Why in the world did God Almighty allow me to do this and 9 judges to stay silent? Because he hates corruption. He hates unbalanced scales. In the case of the governor of New Mexico, who's murdering babies every day, who ran on killing babies in the womb up to the day of birth, he hates the taking of innocent life. So this has all been proven. The FBI filed a complaint. The complaint was put in the trash by a supervisor in Albuquerque. The Doñana District Attorney's Office has the criminal referrals. It has all the evidence. They are charged under habitual crimes. They must prosecute. We're looking for 2 or 3 sheriffs in New Mexico to stand on their oaths, to hear the evidence, to form grand juries, to issue indictments for these individuals. All 8 other judges in Doñana County have been served a notice, the criminal referral of KCB Fitch, to hold them accountable, or they are yet again violating their oaths by warring against the Constitution and not holding their colleague accountable. So that's where we stand. So the challenge is to look at the evidence. The challenge is to go and spread the word people need to know. People in New Mexico, men and women, need to know across this state, and they need to call the governor's office and demand she resign. Even today, which is February 7th, this will be posted probably in about 3 days, 4 days. But she's not the governor. She shouldn't be presiding over the legislative session. Anything she has signed is fraud. All the laws on election fraud, all the laws on schools and health centers, and all the laws on abortion, they're all fraud. Okay? She's acting as the governor, but she's not the governor. And if she's a governor, she's the CEO of a corporation that has no authority over any man or woman in New Mexico. Please get the word out. Please share this. Thank you for your time.